Hello and welcome to the latest edition of 5 Questions With. My name is Rob Thormeyer. I'm the editor of the Utility Technology Council's Journal and the Senior Director of Communications and Advocacy. Today we're talking with C. Keith Williams, who is the Telco Colocation Manager at Georgia Power. We're talking about colocation, street lighting programs, and much more. Keith, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, great, Keith. So first, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background at Georgia Power?
Yes, so I am the Telco Co-location Manager at Georgia Power, which is part of Southern Company. And in my role, I oversee the co-location process across all assets, which includes lighting, transmission, telecom towers, and land use for third-party build-to-suit. And in my role, I manage the process from application to installation. I'm also heavily involved in engagement with the wireless telecom companies and really helping them as far as providing vertical infrastructure to attach their wireless equipment to.
Great. So with all this talk about 5G, you must be really busy these days.
Oh, yes. It's been very, very busy, and I'm sure our audience have heard a lot about this as we see those commercials from the major carriers about 5G and 4G densification, is that there is a demand out there to improve wireless capability and the ability for us to move more data across that wireless infrastructure.
So our first question for you, Keith, is we've been hearing a lot about co-location and utility pole attachments lately, largely because of the 5G topic we're talking about. So can you walk us through what these terms mean and how they relate to electricity and telecommunication services?
Yeah, sure can. So a lot of times as far as what co-location and utility, what that really means. So let's take a broader picture. What we hear a lot about in out there as far as from a commercial standpoint is with our cell phone coverage. Also, as we look at smart cities and other uses out there, one of the major things that you have to have is connectivity. Connectivity is critical for those end users in using those devices. When you look at what the wireless carriers would have to accomplish to provide those services, there is a lack of infrastructure out there. And when I say infrastructure, I mean vertical infrastructure that they can attach their wireless equipment to. So the role of the utility is that there is a lot of existing infrastructure out there, which is mainly utility companies that can provide those opportunities for those carriers to attach their wireless equipment to. And so that's really what our role is. And realistically, from a simplistic standpoint, it's really offering them vertical real estate to attach equipment to. And that's really what our role is. And it helps them with their speed to market. And it also reduces overall cost of building new infrastructure without having a negative impact to existing streetscapes in our community.
Well, speaking of that, can you talk about Georgia Power Streetlighting Program and how that works?
Yes. So with Georgia Power Streetlight Program, this is a main focus for wireless carriers, especially when you're dealing with 4G densification and 5G networks. The new technology around this is called small cell. And small cell, what's different is traditionally we're used to looking at big, tall cell towers that are 200 feet high that cover a larger distance. But with the new small cell and 5G and 4G densification, is that these devices need to be a lot lower to the ground. And if you're looking for existing infrastructure to attach to, this is perfect for streetlights. Streetlights are normally between 40 and 45 feet off the ground. This gives them the perfect range of attaching. This is already existing so that they can take what they call search rings and seeing where their need is and overlaying that as far as with our available infrastructure. The way Georgia Power's program works with the carriers, we first start off with agreements with the carriers. They're interested in doing attachment, not just in one specific area in the state of Georgia, but within the entire state of Georgia. And so what they do is they have a master agreement with us. And then from there, they're giving access to what we have is our customer portal that has all the information about our existing streetlight infrastructure and where it's located. From there, they can use their research information to identify where they need to locate at, and if we have any available street locations that they can attach to. From there, within the portal, they are actually able to start the application process. They actually will go through engineering. They will also receive a site license from us, and they're able to take this information and take it to the jurisdiction for final approval and permits for attachments. Once they have that, we move into the construction phase, which is we call make ready. And within that make ready, what we do is we prepare the site for them to attach their equipment. Once that is done, they're able to attach, get power, and be on air.
Wow. So as I understand, this program is voluntary. You mentioned master agreements. Can you talk about why having a voluntary program for street lighting is better for utilities, the telecommunications companies, cities, and most importantly, for the customers?
Yes. So the voluntary program versus the regulated program is that the one aspect of it is speed to market. When you're in the regulatory program where either you have a carrier self-performing, that means installing their own poles, they have to coordinate with the utility company to get power to the pole. They also have to go through a permitting and regulatory process. And then also they have to go through the jurisdiction to get permitting to actually install the pole and also hang the equipment. This process can take a very long time. I've seen some cases where this may have taken all the way up to 9 months to a year to do. With a voluntary streetlight program, one thing that we bring to the table is that two of the major three components is already at the site. The three major components, just to review, is first of all, the vertical asset is already there. Second, there's already power at that site. So the third component is the fiber backhaul to get to the site. With our streetlight program, the two components that are already there is the vertical infrastructure and the power. So this helps it as far as a speed to market, get them out and trying to get on air as quickly as possible. Now they recognize that they're paying a little bit more for this, but with their goals and how they're trying to deploy a lot quicker, they perceive this as very valuable to them. And then also this is very valuable to a lot of our constituents too, who are looking to increase their connectivity in their areas and their communities.
Sounds like it's working quite well out there for you guys. And speaking of speed to market and getting stuff out there faster, has there been any slowdown during this pandemic that we're all in? What's been your experience to date?
I would say the experience to date is there's not necessarily been a slowdown, but there has been a reorganization as far as priorities with the telecom companies. Like all of us are facing, is that there are some budgetary constraints, so you're having to prioritize as far as what is most critical. But I think one of the things that the pandemic has really shined a light on is that there is need for more connectivity, especially as we get into the residential areas and going beyond those commercial areas. Because of this pandemic, we have a lot more people working at home through teleworking. From the medical side, we have a lot more people doing things through telemedicine where they're not doing things face to face. And the third component is with education, is that we have a lot of education online. And I think with what this pandemic has created is shine a light on that there is a gap, and realistically we need to close that gap. Now, I'll tell you, I'll add a little something to it, is that what we're learning is truly to resolve this issue is that there has to be sort of a symbiotic relationship between the carrier, the utility, and the cities to really serve the constituents, which are all of our customers. And so I think you've seen greater collaboration because we've seen so much demand from our constituents and our customers as they work in this new normal.
That's really interesting to listen to and to hear, because I can imagine that most people who think of utilities may not think of just how essential and vital they are to deploying the telecommunications services as well.
Yes, that's correct. And we've been doing it for a while, but now as we're changing, as the world changes and technology is really assisting us in the way we live our lives, we are positioned well to be a big part of that.
Well, thank you. So our last question for you today, Keith, is what advice you may have for UTC members who wish to explore this issue in more detail.
Well, there are several avenues to take. One thing is internally. What Defining what your role is and what you're trying to accomplish with getting into this voluntary market. And the word I always use is what is that value proposition to you as a utility? What is that value proposition to you as a utility and the customers you serve? So that's one aspect of it. Another thing that's going on in the industry, and I'm actually a part of this, there are a lot of the IOUs are getting together, and some of us are in different maturity models of our voluntary program, but we're sharing best practices, what things that we look at in starting our program, what were those value propositions, what were some of the pinch points, and how do we look to resolve it. So we're sort of sharing this information because all of us are sharing the same customers on this, because you have your big four, which is now the big three, who are really driving this industry. And by doing that collaborative work, we are able to see our pathways and how to evolve our pathways to serve not only our utility customers, but serve the carriers also. And that's really a big part in getting to the point of doing a program like this. And one area I think is key, and it was key for our program, is executive support. So we put together a business plan of what we wanted to do, what was the value proposition, what did that mean to the company, what did that mean to our public service commission, and how we serve our customers.
Well, thank you, Keith, so much for your time today. We greatly appreciate it. And thanks to you all for listening. If you want more information, you can go to our UTC website, Utility Polls, for some more facts and figures that we will be talking about. And thank you for listening. Thank you again, Keith.
Thank you.